Hey guys, welcome to part 6 of my Bullet 500 restoration. So I'm changing all the bearings in the crankcase and replacing the crankshaft. And once that's done, I can finally start reassembling the bike. Welcome to my makeshift workshop.
State of the art!
So the reason I'm doing this in the kitchen is I'm going to need the freezer and the oven when I deal with the bearings.
Fire and ice.
And you'll see what I mean when I get there. So the first thing I want to do is separate the transmission from the crankcase. And it's held on by 4 bolts. 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom. And it's held on by studs that are actually screwed into the crankcase. I'm going to have to unscrew those studs as well and then slide this out to the right. And the reason is there's a shaft that goes from the transmission through the crankcase to the left, so it can be a left-hand shifter. So using these vice grips probably wasn't the best thing for these threads, but I was playing with the nuts and everything seems fine, so I'm not really worried about it. All right, the transmission should just slide right out now. And there it is. So we kind of have some nuts everywhere. Not all the studs go all the way through, like they did here in the front, but we took that out earlier. Again, here in the back, but you've got one there. You have a couple right there. Then you come around, and you've got 2 there at the top, and they're just kind of scattered all over. So it's just a matter of getting them all out and then separating the 2 halves. As I'm doing this, I'm keeping everything very organized so I know exactly where it came from and where it's got to go back. Some of these are really tight, so just be careful. This crankcase is a little wobbly. So just a few whacks with the rubber mallet and it did separate, so not so bad. All right, the egg has hatched. There's one half, there's the other half. There's the disaster of a crankshaft, but here we are. Wasn't too hard. Just kind of be patient and work it open, and it comes right off. Now that everything's in pieces comes the worst part, cleaning it all up. And I'm going to be using gunk again. I got some WD-40, which actually works really well. I've got some gasket remover because the gasket on here is going to be a real pain. It's really bad on this side. But just a little patience. Again, gasket remover, very carefully using a razor blade. And this will all get cleaned up. And then I'll come back, we'll remove the bearings, put in the new bearings, put in the new crankshaft, and close this sucker back up. All right, guys, the cases are all cleaned up. I got the oven at 300. Bacon one of the halves. I also have a bearing in the freezer, freezing. And I got my Velcro cat that's always in the way. And the reason I'm doing this is the point of heating up the crankcase is the aluminum will expand just a little bit. And then by freezing the bearing, that'll shrink just a little bit. And you combine the two and it just makes it easier to get the bearings in. And also by heating up the case, it's going to be a lot easier to get the bearing out. And let me show you how I'm going to do that. So I have a couple kits here. This right here is a puller. And then this right here is the pound bearings in. And you just have different size discs. And you just find the one that is the right size for the bearing to punch it in. And then with the puller, you've got a piece here that will expand as you screw this in. This will expand inside the bearing. And then you attach it to this little hammer here. And it'll punch it up. The hammer is about 3.5 pounds, and you just sort of pound it right out of the casing. And I already have the right size disc ready to pound this particular bearing into the case. All right, once it's out, you want to act reasonably quick so it doesn't cool down too much. So again, this just goes right inside. Let's see how this goes. So I just flipped it over real quick, so I want to get this little oil seal out. I'm going to replace that. And even though I cleaned it, you can see there's some oil here because what I did is after I rinsed it off, I just put oil on all the steel parts. Just I don't want anything to corrode, you know, the bottom tappets and everything. So I'm just going to take a pair of pliers and just kind of pry this thing out. And it doesn't matter if I damage it because I'm replacing it. As you can see, it already tore. All right, I found the trick. It's in here too tight to just yank it out with pliers. It's just going to tear. So just get a screwdriver and just kind of get it under and slowly work it out. And just be real careful not to damage the aluminum. But it's coming out fairly easily. And then once it's out this much, you should be able to just grab it now. And there it is. All right, it cooled down a little bit while I was working on it. So back in the oven for about 15 minutes, and then I'll put the new bearing in. All right, so while this is cold, you want to get it in there while the case is hot. And you can see it's already kind of slipping in. And there's no upside, there's no top or bottom. It can go in either way. I'm just going to get it started. And you want to just make it flush with the rim of the case. And now I have my nice new European high quality bearing installed. I'm also going to let this cool down before I put that new rubber oil seal in on the other side. Because this bearing was very cold in the freezer, it's got the potential to condense a little bit, so it already had some oil on it. I'm just going to put a little bit more on.
More?
Now I'm going to put the new rubber oil seal back on the timing side. And you can just press it on. It's tight, but you can actually press it on with your fingers. Okay, new plan. The bearing was just not coming out. That thing is just absolutely jammed in there. So we're going to start from the other side and then see if we can push it out after we get the other bearing out, because there's two bearings on this side. So I'm going to get this oil seal off and we'll see what we can do. All right, so here's the second bearing, and it's surrounded by two clips. So I've got to take the first one out, then I'll try to get this bearing out, then I'll take the second clip out, and then I'll see if I can push that first one out, kind of pounding it from above. So let's see how this goes. All right, sorry, I ended up doing this off camera because I was having a little trouble. I forgot how much I hated these retaining clips, and this is a heavy one. And the trick is you just want to squeeze those two ends all the way until they're touching, and then you'll be able to, give it a few tries, but then you'll be able to get it out. But it's this one's a slippery one, but it's doable. Just squeeze those two ends so they're touching, and it'll come out. I'm down in the garage because it's getting kind of late and I'm making a racket hammering on this thing. So my puller isn't strong enough to get these bearings out. They're really jammed in there. So we're going to have to try to push them out. So again, I'm down in the garage just because this is going to make a lot of noise. And I got a little more stability having this bench on concrete. So let's see if I can push this first bearing out. And it's out. All right, now I'm going to flip it over and punch out that last bearing. It's that they'll come out even if they're tight, but you got to be able to push them out. Sometimes the puller's just not going to do it. It's not a heavy enough hammer. All right, guys, unbelievably, the bearing I have is too small.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
Even though the part number is correct, everything's correct, but the bearing in the box is like 2 sizes too small compared to the one that came out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue as much as I can. I've got the spacer that goes between the bearings, and I'll run back upstairs and I'll get the other bearing, which I think is correct. So I'll be able to mostly assemble this, but we're going to be a bearing short. So that's going to set me back a few days. So I put a light coat of oil on the spacer, and this actually isn't a tight fit. This should just drop right in. And it doesn't matter which direction. And it just sits on the clip that's in there. All right, this bearing is the correct size. What do you know? All right, it's in there. It was a tough one. This was tough getting out, and it was tough putting a new one back in. It's just a really tight fit, but it's in there, and it's good to go. All right, guys, we're back. Got my new bearing. We're ready to go. This just came out of the oven. It's very hot, so the metal should be expanded a little bit. Now, I've got to take this bearing. We got to go kind of deep. We got to go all the way in there against that clip. There's a clip inside, you can see. So this is going to rest against that clip. Then we're going to put a second clip in. That's the one you saw me take off earlier. And then we're just going to put an oil seal on top, and then this will be ready to go. Now, I didn't freeze this bearing because I'm down in the garage. And if you wait too long after you take it out, it starts to condense a little bit because it's so cold. And I just don't think that's the best idea. So I heated up the case. This is just room temperature, but it should work. We shouldn't have too much of a problem. So that one went in fairly easily, much better than the other side. So all that's left is just to put that second clip in right there, and then the oil seal, and then this drive side of the case is finished. Okay, so our new bearing is finally in there. We've got the second clip in there. So now I'm just going to let this cool off for a little bit before I put in the final rubber seal. And then the crankcase will be ready to put back together with the new crankshaft. Okay, so the case is cooled down. So I'm just going to put on the final rubber seal. And it kind of pushes on, but I'll probably need the hammer to really get it down there. Okay, the seal is in there nice and flush. So this completes the drive side of the crankcase. So now both the drive side and the timing side are finished with the new bearings. So now it's time to reassemble this thing with the new crankshaft. So I'm going to put the crankshaft on the timing side because it's got the shorter end. That's the drive side. And then once it's secure, I'll put the drive side on top and then close everything up. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a little gasket sealer on both ends of the crankcase, then put on the gasket. And my sealer of choice is this right here. Very good stuff. Why is she like falling on her ass here? This part right here you just cut off. All right, the first thing to put on the crankshaft are these two thrust washers, just one on each side. All right, guys, so we've hit another problem. This is the collar for the bearing, and it's supposed to slide all the way to the washer, but it doesn't. It stops there. The interior is just a hair too small. And I even took the one off the old crankshaft, and it's the same thing. It won't go past there. So this wasn't machined to spec, at least as far as my bike is concerned. It's from Hitchcock's, and it's supposedly designed specifically for my bike, but here we are. We got bearings that won't fit the crankshaft. So, I'll solve this. I've got some options. I mean, perhaps I can get these machined on the interior just a bit so they'll fit down. Because it looks like the crankshaft otherwise properly fits the case. I just can't get these collars on. So there's nothing I can do right now. I mean, I'm literally just sitting here in a kitchen. I don't have a machine shop. I can't just solve this tonight. So I'm going to end the video here because this is a bit of a brick wall right now. And I'll keep you posted. Again, I'll solve this. It's just I got to figure out exactly how to do it. I don't know if Hitchcock's has the proper collars or the proper bearings for me. I might have to just put a different bearing in there with a different collar that'll fit this crankshaft. I mean, I don't know yet. Or I might have to modify these to fit properly, which is an option. It is an option. So, again, I'm going to stop the video here, and I will keep you posted. So, yeah, this is frustrating. But what can you do? I'm thinking the solution is to just machine the insides of the bearing collars so they'll fit the crankcase. If that's the only issue otherwise, then it's a relatively easy fix. I might even be able to rig something up and do it myself. And even if I don't find a quick fix for this crankshaft, there's still so much to do on this bike. So the restoration videos will continue one way or the other. So I'm not taking a break from restoring the bike, but I am going to review a bike for the channel this week. So it might be a little longer than a week before the next video on this one. And the bike I'm reviewing is this one, my new Ducati Street Fighter V4. I've been wanting one of these for a long time, so this is going to be a very fun review. So stay tuned, and until next time, guys, look at that single-sided swing arm. God, this bike is so badass. All right, guys, I just want to give you a quick update. I actually put this video up a day ago and then took it down because some information was coming in. So I just want to kind of give you the latest that I have. So it turns out that the crankshaft I have is actually out of spec. It's from Hitchcock's, and apparently they have an older version that is just a hair different. They're almost identical, but the shafts on mine are supposed to be 25 millimeter. And the one I have is 25.4 millimeter. So it's subtle. You can't see it visually, but that's why those inner bearing collars aren't going on, because it's designed for a 25 millimeter shaft, and these are 25.4 millimeter. So I knew I wasn't going crazy. I've worked with crankshafts before, and I mean, I know sometimes these things are tight, but this wasn't tight. It was like hitting a brick wall. It just would not go on. That's why I was like, do I need to machine the inside? I just didn't know what was happening because I had no reason to believe that this crankshaft was the wrong one. I mean, it's a specialized crankshaft from Hitchcock's. I mean, how many different ones do they have? But apparently they do have another one, and they accidentally sent me the wrong one. And it's frustrating because this is now the second time this has happened. They already sent me the wrong bearing. I did my part right. It was the right part number. It was actually the right box, but they had the wrong bearing inside. So that cost me a week. And now this crankshaft, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to have to ship this thing back to them. They're going to have to ship me the right one. So it's, it's frustrating. I can't work with the wrong parts. But as I said earlier, there's a lot to do to the bike. I'm going to replace the front and rear fenders, the rear tail assembly, the headlight. So there's still stuff to do. So I'll still work on it while I'm waiting for this to get resolved. And again, I'm going to review my new Ducati Street Fighter V4, which, I mean, I can only be so mad because I'm still kind of on a high from that. But so that's what's going on. I just wanted to give you kind of the latest, and I'll keep you posted as this goes on. But so that's what happened. I got the wrong crankshaft. Go figure. But I'll see you guys soon.